You've probably already heard about what Mat Armstrong went through with his Bugatti Veyron Pur Sport, and how that situation spiralled into something much bigger than just a rebuild. The car's VIN was effectively locked. A technician was flown in from France to assess it, and the official conclusion was that it wasn't repairable. On top of that, genuine parts were withheld from an independent builder even when the owner was willing to pay. That entire situation exploded online, drawing tens of millions of views and even prompting a response from Mat Armstrong. It went so far that lawmakers in Europe began referencing cases like this when discussing right to repair legislation. After all that attention, you might assume things would change, or at the very least that the same situation wouldn't repeat itself so obviously. But then Matt picked up another Bugatti, this time a Bugatti Veyron, and what followed was not a variation of the same problem or a watered-down version of it. It was essentially the exact same situation playing out again, just with a different car, a different context, and a different moment in time, but leading to the same fundamental roadblock. This time, though, the way Bugatti handled it revealed something even more significant. Instead of outright refusing to sell parts, which would have been direct and easy to understand, they responded in a way that sounded reasonable on the surface, but carried a very different implication underneath. That difference is what made this situation stand out even more than the last one. When Matt tried to source parts for his Veyron, he wasn't told no in a blunt or dismissive way. Instead, he was told that the car would need to be physically present at a Bugatti facility before anything could move forward. At first glance, that might sound like standard procedure for a high-end manufacturer, but the deeper meaning becomes clear the moment you think through what that actually requires. It means the parts are never simply sold to the owner. They are only ever provided as part of a full service carried out by Bugatti themselves, on their terms, at their location, and at their pricing. Before even getting to that point, the experience of contacting Bugatti already hinted at how this process works in practice. The first call, placed to their London dealership, didn't lead to a conversation at all. It went straight to voicemail, and despite leaving details and explaining the request, there was no response. Considering the value of a Veyron, which sits comfortably in the range of hundreds of thousands to over £1 million depending on condition and history, that lack of engagement was surprising. The second attempt, this time to Manchester, did result in a conversation. A receptionist connected Matt to someone in parts and service, and he presented himself simply as an owner, looking to buy routine service items like filters, plugs, and even a replacement speed key. The reply came back quickly and clearly, but not in the way most people would expect. He was told that the car had to be brought in before any parts could be ordered. That one statement carries a lot of weight. It effectively means that ownership does not grant full control over the maintenance process. Instead, that creates a system where the manufacturer retains control not just over the parts themselves, but over how, when, and where those parts are used. Once the car is delivered to them, they handle everything from ordering to installation, and the owner only receives the completed work at the end. There is no option to take the parts elsewhere, no ability to manage the process independently, and no flexibility beyond agreeing to the structure they've set. It's not a refusal in the traditional sense, but it leads to the same outcome. The owner cannot independently repair their own car using genuine components. What made the situation even more striking was how casually this was communicated. When Matt reached out to confirm the policy with another dealership, the explanation was essentially the same, just phrased slightly differently. At one point, a representative summed it up by saying that this is simply how things work with Bugatti. There was no hesitation, no sense that this might be unusual or controversial. It was presented as a normal and expected part of owning one of their cars. That's the moment that stood out the most because it reframes the entire relationship between manufacturer and owner. It suggests that buying the car does not necessarily mean having full autonomy over it. Even before making those calls, Matt had already been thinking about how to approach the situation. He openly discussed whether he should even use his real identity when contacting Bugatti, given his previous experience and the attention surrounding it. The fact that someone who legally owns a car, has documentation to prove it, and is responsible for everything associated with it would consider hiding their identity just to purchase parts says a lot about the dynamics at play. It turns a straightforward transaction into something that feels conditional, where access depends not just on ownership but on how closely you align with the manufacturer's preferred way of doing things. Looking at the car itself only adds more context to the situation. The Veyron Mat purchased wasn't a pristine collector example. It had clearly been used and modified over time. It had incorrect tyres fitted, components showing wear and corrosion, and even evidence of past electrical issues. One of the most important missing items was the speed key, a small but critical piece that unlocks the car's full performance capabilities. Without it, the Veyron is electronically limited, meaning it cannot reach the speeds it was designed for. That alone creates a situation where the owner cannot fully experience the car as intended, yet acquiring that missing piece still requires going through the same controlled process. The tyre situation is particularly revealing. The Veyron was originally designed to use highly specialised Michelin Pax tyres, developed specifically for the car to handle its extreme performance. Instead, this example arrived fitted with Pirelli tyres designed for a Lamborghini, paired with spacers to approximate the correct dimensions. That's not a minor deviation. Tyres are one of the most critical safety components on any car, especially one capable of such high speeds. If the goal of restricting parts and service is to maintain safety and quality, then the presence of clearly incorrect tyres on the car raises questions about how effective that system actually is in practice. The same pattern appears in other areas as well. A damaged fuse box caused by an incorrect fuse being installed at some point in the past needed replacement. With no direct way to source the original part, Mat's team adapted a component from a Lamborghini Urus, modifying it to fit and function correctly. This worked because both vehicles exist under the same larger corporate structure, Volkswagen Group, where shared engineering and components are common. That reality highlights another layer of the issue. Parts that are presented as exclusive or unique may actually have equivalents within the same corporate ecosystem, but access and pricing are tightly controlled. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that this isn't just about one car or one manufacturer. It reflects a broader trend in the automotive industry, where control over maintenance, diagnostics, and even functionality is increasingly centralized. Modern vehicles rely heavily on software, proprietary systems, and controlled access to tools and data. As that trend continues, the gap between ownership and control can grow wider. What happened with this Veyron is an extreme example, but the underlying principle is not limited to hypercars. Mat himself recognized this during the process. After hearing how Bugatti operates, he commented that it feels like all cars could eventually move in this direction. That observation carries weight because it connects this specific experience to a larger shift happening across the industry. If access to parts, tools, and systems becomes more restricted, then the ability for owners to maintain and repair their own vehicles could become increasingly limited. Despite all of this, Mat made a clear decision about how to proceed. Rather than sending the car back to Bugatti and following their process, he chose to continue working on it independently, not because it would necessarily be easier or cheaper, but because it aligns with his approach of understanding and rebuilding cars firsthand. The project becomes more than just fixing a vehicle. It turns into a demonstration of what's possible outside the official framework, using whatever resources, knowledge, and creativity are available. That approach is what makes the situation so compelling. It's not just about overcoming mechanical challenges, but about navigating a system designed to limit certain kinds of access. As the work continues and more issues are addressed, the outcome will say a lot about what ownership really means in a world where manufacturers retain increasing control. And if the car eventually returns to full functionality, with every major issue resolved, it will stand as another example that challenges the idea that only the original manufacturer can properly maintain what they build.